So behind me, we have City Hall, and a City Hall of a great city, a city where right now thousands of families are wondering whether they can ever find a place to own. Many families, many people are looking in fear that if they lose their apartments, the way rents are going up, they're not going to be able to find another place to rent. And they are having desperate conversations with loved ones that they're not going to be able to stay in the city where they've got friends, they've got families, they want to continue to stay in, but they simply can't afford it. It is getting to the point that people are saying we can't afford to live in our communities. We can't afford to stay in the city. And we've got a newly elected mayor who understands how serious this is, who is ready to do the work. Well, we've got a prime minister, Mr. Trudeau, who just announced that there's no additional funds for Toronto. That is a wrong decision. I think that's a wrong thing to say. And he is more caught up in finger pointing between the federal government and the provincial government, fight between Mr. Trudeau and Mr. Ford. And none of that helps the people of the city. We're calling for concrete action. While things have gotten worse while Mr. Trudeau has been in power, things have gotten more expensive while he has had the ability to make things better, things have gotten worse. And the Conservatives are proposing actions that are just going to put more money in the pockets of rich developers. What we're suggesting is we've got a path to actually build more homes that are affordable. We need to build more homes quickly that are within the budget of Torontonians, that people in the city can actually afford. To do that, we've got two concrete steps. There's many more that we need, but two concrete steps we could do right now. One is to waive the GST and HST on builds that meet the specific criteria of affordability so that families can actually afford it, so that people can actually afford to pay the rent there. That's one step. And the second is to guarantee that all federal land in municipalities like Toronto, all federal land in this city should be dedicated to building more affordable homes, not used for any other purpose, not sold off for any other purpose. To give an example, there was a property on Queens Quay that was going to be sold off to build high-cost luxury condos. We fought back with the help of Councillor Joe Cressy and said, no, this federal land should be used for affordable housing. And we won that fight. But it shouldn't be a fight. It should be common sense that any piece of federal land in a city like Toronto should be used towards building more affordable homes. So those are some concrete solutions that we're proposing. We're proposing solutions that'll work for the people of this city so they can find a home they can afford. We understand how serious it is. We're proposing action. We've got a mayor that's ready to work. Now we need a federal partner as well.
Whether you're looking at housing crisis, it's not just a Toronto problem. You can go from Vancouver to Halifax and almost every small or medium-sized town in between, they have a crisis. Donating land, would that be enough, or should there be other measures put forward to help house people?
There's got to be a lot of measures put forward. We're proposing two concrete steps that can be taken immediately, but there needs to be a host of measures. What we're talking about is getting rid of or waiving the GST or HST, the federal portion, when it comes to builds that meet the definition of affordability and making sure all federal land is used to build affordable housing. Those are two steps, but we need many steps. A couple of examples of what's going on in Canada. We have in Canada one of the most serious housing shortages. We've got the lowest housing stock per capita of the G7 nations. In addition, if you look at the non-market housing, in Canada, we hover around 4%. 8 European nations, on average, when we looked at them, had over 22% non-market housing. So there's got to be a lot of things done. We've got to make sure that there's non-market housing in the mix. We've got to incentivize private development of affordable housing. We need to make sure that people have a real option to rent affordably, because it's impossible to build enough for people to buy when people can't actually live somewhere where they can save up money. So they need to find a place that's affordable where they can actually save up money to buy a home eventually. So we need more rental, purpose-built rental. We need a mix of housing. We need non-market solutions. We're proposing two concrete solutions today, but there's a host of things that need to be done.
If you look at it and you look at it doesn't matter, the big city mayors in Ontario, and I'm sure this message is repeated across Canada, there needs to be a different funding formula for cities and for urban areas. Is that something that's on your agenda?
Yeah, what we're proposing today is we need a federal government that has a better partnership directly with municipalities. We need a federal government that's willing to work with mayors that are ready to do the hard work. We've got a new mayor-elect, Olivia Chow, who is ready to do that hard work. And the mayor needs a partner at the federal level that's willing to put in their fair share to support a mayor that wants to build more homes that are affordable to help deal with the housing crisis. So we absolutely need to look at better ways for the federal government to work with cities, municipalities. We need a better path so that we can actually deliver more results. And we need to make sure that we're taking housing seriously. And so far, the Liberal government under Mr. Trudeau has not taken this crisis seriously. Under his watch, the cost of housing has gone up, the cost of rent has gone up, things have gotten worse, not better, and we need to turn that around.
Ultimately, what you're saying will add to the cash flow that's needed to spend, the government's need to spend on housing. That means increased taxes. Isn't that just perpetuating the cycle of taxing more to house more?
There's no question, though, that we need to build more housing. There's no question about it. And then on top of that, we know that just purely incentivizing private development isn't going to be enough on its own. It's a part of the solution. That's why we're proposing one incentive today, but we know we need to do more. There was a time that Canada at the federal level was involved with building more homes. A lot of the first homes that people bought post-World Wars were post-World War built homes by the federal government, through CMHC and other federal initiatives to build affordable homes. We need to do that again. We are so far behind the ball when it comes to affordability. There's no place for people to rent. There's no places for people to buy their first homes. We need to turn that around. And that is an economic driver if we look at it. People can't move into a city if there's nowhere for them to live. We can't bring in more workers that need to fill the positions that are available if there's nowhere for them to live. So this is an economic driver. This is an investment that will create more jobs and will also ensure that we can bring more people into our communities where we need more people. And without the ability to house them, we've heard from so many businesses that say one of their major barriers to bringing people into their community is there's nowhere for those folks to live. There's nowhere for them to rent. There's nowhere for them to buy a home. We've got to fix this.
Hi, Mr. Singh. I'm just wondering if you could comment about the BC port strike, which could be costing our economy up to $800 million a day in economic activity. So first, just about your comments on the strike itself and how we resolve the situation.
I want to be very clear. I believe the workers have the right to strike and that it is important for workers to be able to strike to get fair wages. I want to be also very clear. We are opposed to any back to work legislation. We are opposed to forcing binding arbitration. This is a negotiation that needs to happen at the table. And we want the federal government to apply pressure on the companies, on the bosses, on the employers to sit down and negotiate with the workers to come to a fair contract. The workers are demanding fair wages. They're demanding protection of their jobs and for future jobs. These are reasonable demands. The government should put pressure on the businesses to negotiate a fair contract.
And as a follow-up, I mean, during the stresses of cost of living right now, this strike is only going to drive up prices more for Canadians, even at the grocery store, something you've lobbied heavily against. How do you square the fact that you're supportive of the striking workers, but then also trying to speak out against high prices and the struggles that Canadians are facing when this strike will only drive up prices further?
Well, the employers have a responsibility to negotiate fairly. It didn't need to go to this strike. Employers need to sit down and negotiate a fair contract. These are workers that have been working without a contract. They gave notice very clearly that if we don't get any movement on our contract, we'll go on strike. They're on strike now. So the employers now should feel the urgency of getting to the table and negotiating a fair contract. In terms of how we bring down food prices, we've talked a lot about some of the steps we need to take that would directly force these large corporations that are making record profits to contribute through an excess profit tax or a wealth tax or a windfall tax, something that other countries in the world, other European nations have already done for other sectors. They put in place windfall taxes. So countries like the United Kingdom, Germany, Spain have all done it. We're suggesting we do that here. We need to stand up for Canadians who are being gouged by the wealthy CEOs that are using inflation as a cover to make even higher profits. The Competition Bureau's own report found that these grocery companies are increasing their margins at a time when Canadians are struggling to buy food. Wealthy corporate CEOs are using inflation to increase their margins to make even more profit off of Canadians. That is wrong. And so we need to fight back, and we'll continue to raise those concerns. And these workers should get a fair contract and be back to work as soon as employers are willing to negotiate fairly.